Let's travel back in time, way back to 17th century China, right into the heart of the Ming Dynasty. We're going to unpack the story of a truly mysterious and absolutely catastrophic explosion. This was a blast so powerful it didn't just level part of a city, it might have actually helped bring down an entire empire.
Now, that's not some modern writer trying to be dramatic. That is the official description from government reports at the time. You have to imagine, for the people in Beijing, this must have felt like the world was literally ending.
And the human cost, it's just staggering. Contemporary accounts estimate that something like 20,000 people were killed, just gone in an instant. To put that into perspective, that was a huge chunk of the capital's population at the time. Okay, if you want a visual that really captures the sheer force we're dealing with, get this. The blast had enough power to pick up a 3-ton stone lion and hurl it completely over the massive city walls of Beijing. The scale of that force is it's hard to even wrap your head around.
So, what was it actually like to be there on that day? Let's try to reconstruct the timeline based on the historical accounts and see how this disaster unfolded minute by terrifying minute.
It all happened terrifyingly fast. I mean, imagine this. Eyewitnesses said the sky was clear and then this deep, roaring rumble starts. A moment later, a blinding flash of light and then the bang that shattered the sky. Within just a few minutes, the whole area was plunged into darkness, the sun completely blotted out by dust and debris.
And the aftermath was just as eerie and bizarre. The cloud that rose up over the epicenter was described with this very specific image, a black Linji mushroom. This weird, ominous shape, it's a type of fungus, just hung over the devastated city for hours, a terrifying monument to what had just happened.
So how on earth could something like this even happen? Well, to get that, we need to look at exactly where it happened and, the whole political climate of the time. The Ming Dynasty, in a lot of ways, was already a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark.
The center of the blast was the Wanggongchang Armory, and we're not talking about some small storage shed here. This was one of the primary weapons and gunpowder factories for the entire empire, and it was located right inside the super-crowded capital. Its job was to crank out tons of gunpowder on a regular basis.
Meanwhile, the dynasty itself was on pretty shaky ground. The ruler, the Tianxi emperor, was famously more passionate about his woodworking hobby than, actually governing. The court was just riddled with corruption and infighting. The government was stretched thin by natural disasters and military campaigns. Things were not going well.
All right, so now let's look at how this one catastrophic event turned into a full-blown crisis. The immediate aftermath was a scene of just pure horror and chaos that touched every single level of society. The blast totally obliterated an area of about 4 square kilometers. Officials were killed right at their desks. Over at the Forbidden City, which was being renovated, over 2,000 workers were shaken right off the roofs and fell to their deaths. And, maybe most tragically for the dynasty, the emperor's infant son, his only heir, died from the shock of the event.
The emperor's own survival was literally a matter of seconds. The story goes that he was having breakfast when the palace started to shake violently. He just bolted, and the single guard who stayed right with him was struck and killed by a falling roof tile just a few feet behind him. It just paints a picture of how close he came to death.
You see, this explosion wasn't just a physical disaster, it was a deep political and psychological blow. It sent shockwaves through the dynasty that would directly contribute to its eventual collapse.
And here is the crucial part. In imperial China, emperors ruled with what was called the mandate of heaven. Natural disasters, especially big ones, were often seen as signs that heaven was displeased. An event this devastating, happening right in the capital, it was seen as a clear, unmistakable sign of celestial anger, and it completely undermined the emperor's authority.
And that's when the dominoes really started to fall. First, the death of his heir left the emperor with no successor. He then died just a year later, and his brother took the throne.
The new emperor immediately purged a powerful court faction, but instead of stabilizing things, it actually threw the government into even more chaos and sped up the dynasty's decline.
So here we are, nearly 400 years later, and after all the political drama and the human tragedy, one massive question still hangs over everything. What actually caused the Wanggongchang explosion? There are a few competing theories. The most obvious one, right? A simple, massive gunpowder accident at the armory. Makes sense. But then you have those eyewitness reports of a bright streak of flash coming from the sky, which has led some to think it was a meteor airburst, kind of like the Tunguska event. There's even another theory about a natural gas explosion, pointing to reports that the ground itself sank dramatically at the epicenter. The truth is, no one knows for sure.
And that really leaves us with the central question, doesn't it? Was this a tragic but ultimately explainable industrial disaster? Or was it something more, a freak celestial event, a geological anomaly, or, as so many believed back then, a punishment from heaven that put a fading dynasty on its final path to ruin? It's a mystery that is still absolutely fascinating centuries later.